So, well, my name is Nicolaj, and I mainly see myself as an entrepreneur and investor. And I've done this for the last 10, 15 years. And what I realized over some time was that all the mistakes I've done in trying to raise money. Because when you start that, you're going for all the wrong places and go and look for funding. And that's recently, actually, I wrote a book about it called Startup Funding Book, actually just to make sure that hopefully some of you would do otherwise and don't repeat all my mistakes. And I would try in 15 minutes to sort of recap, I think, the major mistakes I see startups do again and again in trying to raise funding. And actually, the headline for this is Screw the VC. And that's actually not because there's anything wrong with VCs, but just because the chance that any one of you would raise venture money is relatively low. Maybe I can ask, has anyone of you raised a venture round? No? So how many German startups are raising venture capital funding a year? Any guess? I looked it up yesterday, I didn't know. 300 to 400, right? How many companies are created in Germany a year? I don't know, I'll say several hundred thousands. And of course, many of them are not startups that are relevant for VCs. You know, that could be 7-Eleven. But still, if you deduct all that and say it's only IT company, only medtech companies, the chance that one of those would actually raise VC funding is relatively low. And that's why that many of you would have to go outside to raise money. So this is my book. This is some of the startups I've in. I think the disclaimer is that my viewpoint is mainly on, you can say, high risk, high reward things like software and medtech. But if we start with all this, then I'll actually say, you know, when we talk about investors is an extremely broad topic. Investors is like you going to your mom and ask for a loan, and investors are like you going to Axel and ask for 100 million. And the easiest way for me to describe it is saying that there's some investors who are okay with a high degree of risk. That's a classic VC. Most likely the best example would be VCs investing in pharmaceuticals, right? A VC is investing 50 million euro in a pharmaceutical company, and the chance that they will be successful is most likely less than 5%. But they're okay with that. Why? Because if it becomes big, then they are up here. You have also other kinds of investors, which could be the bank. Actually, it's not an investor, it's a financing source, you can say. You know, they only charge you a small interest rate, therefore they want low risk. So when we talk about startups are all over the world. You can actually see there's a lot of startups that would be high risk, low reward, simply because the risk is much higher. But if we go a little bit deeper into how different sources think, then I'll say, why aren't you or me having a VC case? And to keep it very, very simple, then to spark the interest of a VC, you will have to say to them, dear VC, within 5 years or 3 years, I will have a company that is worth several hundred million euro. Not in 20 years, not in 30 years. And that requires something that is really, really scalable, and most likely scalable across at least Europe. You have a product that is much, much better than competition. Otherwise, you can honestly not build something that can grow fast enough. And the market is huge. So I come from Denmark, and the classic example of stuff that doesn't interest the VC is you have something scalable, you have something big, but it's only relevant for Denmark. It's really, really hard to build a multi-billion-dollar company in a country with 5 million citizens. So most likely it has to be something that is really, really big. And the chance that you will have this in 5 years is so small. You know, I'm involved in many companies. I'm right now a shareholder in 15. And even though I only look for these high-risk things, it's only maybe 4 of my companies that have real VC money. So if you take anything away from that and say, well, VCs are great if you end up being in that specific space, but the chance that you're there is very, very small. So the simplistic way for me to see it from a tech perspective on on who invests in what is actually saying something from idea to profit. So many early stage startups that come to these conferences, they are, in my view, something like here, right? Something like we have a team, we have a prototype, maybe we even launch something. Most likely you don't have millions of users, you have something here. And it's way too early for venture capital. Venture capital want you to have a hockey stick, at least when we talk of software, or something that is really, really unique. So who invests here? And most likely it's not the VC. And I said most likely, and said there's of course always the case where you have something really, really crazy, you have done it 10 times before, yes, then maybe a VC will give you money here. But for all those people who haven't built a billion-dollar company before, they want to see more. So actually, I think that before you go out speak to business angels like me, you should speak to your co-founders. Because if you go to business angels like me and you're a one-person company, the chance that we will invest is close to zero. Because we will think, hey, there must be something wrong with you if you can't even convince your friends to join the company. And the chance that you have all the skills necessary to build this fantastic billion-dollar company is just so unrealistic. So I'm not saying it's impossible to fund a one-person company, but I'll say it's really, 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 really hard. I would actually, if there's some of the VCs in the room, I could actually ask them, have you ever invested in a one-person founding team? And I'll say most of them will say no. So I would say that the first one are these 2 or 3 co-founders who have different kinds of skills. And I'm a very simple guy, so I see, well, there's 2 skills I need. I need the chef, the guy or girl who can build the product. And if you're in software, then you need a CTO. You can't build it with outsourced R&D from Kiev. And then the other side is, of course, also important. That is the salesperson. And you need the salesperson actually from here. Because you're not only selling to customers, you're selling to startup conferences. You're selling to partners. You're selling to co-founders. You're selling to employees. You need to have one extrovert person. So when I and other business angels are investing, we are looking for both competences. So I would say that's the starting point. If you're one person with an idea or something like that, even though you're the best programmer in the world, I would find the person who complements you. So, but who then? Okay, now you've got your co-founders in place. And now you think, oh my God, I have something, I might have a prototype, who do you reach out to? I would say that most likely the next investor know you already. It could be me, who is maybe one of my former students from Copenhagen Business School. It could also be your uncle. But early stage investment is so much about trust. So the chance that you meet a random business angel at a conference like this, and I want to trust you enough to put in money, even though you have a cool team, is very, very low. I'll come back to that. So this is data from US. I will guess it's the same in Europe, and saying, who are getting all the attention? Venture capital, angel investments, crowdfunding, they might be a little bigger now. But who are the real providers of capital besides yourself? That is your friend and family. And there's many pros and cons with that. We don't have time to go into that. But when you look at early, even VC-funded companies and look into the cap table, there's often Mr. or Mrs. whatever, and that then turns to be the uncle, the friend, the neighbor, or something like that. Because they know you, they trust you. So, unfortunately, I don't have a German example, but this is the best example I have. This is Peter, who founded Trustpilot, which most likely will go public next year, and it got a shitload of venture capital here. The interesting part is, if you go through the cap table and see who invested first, Peter's uncle. Peter's uncle invested 17,000 euro, right? He actually invested more here. And here it hit the newspaper because here you have Index Ventures, DFJ, stuff like that investing. But who are the first investors? That is typically someone who know you already. And now we have the borderline. Now your uncle has invested and you feel ready to go out broadly to invest. And then I will say, who are the next one? That could be business angels. persons like me, persons like all in the room. And then you will ask yourself, why do they invest and what do they invest in? And I will say, we invest in everything. Why? Because most of us want to make money, yes. But most of us are also cynical enough about this game we're in, so we know we could make more money than by putting it in the stock exchange, honestly. The risk-adjusted return for most business angels is not outperforming the market. That's at least my claim. So why do we invest? Well, I tend to see it like this. We invest for our own sake. We invest to get money, but also to have something interesting to do. But you'll actually be surprised how many business angels who are also investing for you, because they have been a young entrepreneur themselves. Now they've sold this big company, but they have been in your shoes, so they actually want to help. It's not like they're giving you free money, but they actually want to help. And actually, there's also a lot that want to invest in something that's good for the world. I was very close earlier this year to invest in a chili farm in Africa. Will that be my next unicorn? Most likely not. But I could see it could be so fun and so good for the world. So actually, when I started this, and my own first companies before I was to invest, I do this myself. And this is maybe the best response I ever got. This is actually a high-profile UK-based investor. And his response to what I sent out, executive summary, looks fun and I hope potentially profitable, right? So what drives him? Well, that person is good for at least 20 million euro. He don't really need 2 million more, but he needs something that is fun, that is exciting. So when you're going out to business angels, remember to ask or to provide more than just a financial upside, provide something. And the best way that, look what they've done in the past. If they've done something that is good for the world in the past, the chance that they will invest in something in the future is very high. So the problem is, this field is so big. So how to identify the ones? I would say, first you have to go into that matrix and find out who fits you. Do you have something that is the next whatever, big thing here, or do you have something that is less risky and less scalable? Find out. Because if I'm normally investing in this, the chance that I will invest in this is very low. So find something that has the same appetite for risk and reward. And then, honestly, you have to find someone who invests in the same industry. So if you're how many of you in software? Most of you? Yeah. If you're in software and you reach out to people that had only made their money in property development, the chance that they will invest in your early stage software company is just low. And then at the same stage, if you're asking for 100,000 euro, then try to go out and convince people that are used to that amount. That also means that you're not asking for VC, because a VC invests 3, 5, 10 million euro and not 100,000. And how to contact them? So now you identify this pool of 500 potential investors. I think you have to use, I think I actually have an example, yeah. You have to get introduced. Even a business angel like me, I might get 200, 300, 400 requests a year, and I might invest in 5. That honestly means that a lot of the requests you get, you're not reading that detailed. But if it comes from a trusted friend, you'll say, Nicolaj, I know you haven't invested in any German companies, but you should take a look at this company. If that request is coming from one of my trusted contacts, I'll really believe in that. Yeah, so now you have identified, or maybe we should take a little bit step deeper into how you identify the wrong one. So what you should focus on are the one who at least comes with a recommendation. Ideally, you know the person already, right? Ideally, it's someone you have done business with in the past. But alternatively, it's something recommendation. But then you have to find out an angel or an investor who knows the industry. Because otherwise, you end in the red area, and the red area is, honestly, we don't look at it. A classic example. When someone sent me something I can't understand, I can't evaluate it. So that could be what could it be? Some really, really nerded fintech backend system for banks. I like fintech, but I don't really know how competitive that is. So is that new system better than the tens of systems the banks are already having? I can't really evaluate. So you need to get out to angels or investors who knows the industry you're in and where you at least come with a recommendation. Because otherwise, I normally respond to everyone. But this is actually an email I got from a person who contacted me out of the blue for something that was in the red area. And that person is just so happy because I answer back, right? Because that's normally not the case. So again, spend your time on the right investors. This is not a numbers game. This is not about just finding a database at Upwork about 10,000 angels who said, dear X. It doesn't work. And that is because early stage investment is very different from late stage investment because there's so much about trust in you. When you have a company that is receiving VC funding of 10 million euro, you have a lot of data. You know acquisition cost, how much customers are willing to pay, competition, whatever. But when you have something at the prototype stage, you have nothing. So the reason why I should invest in the company or not is coming back to, do I trust the founding team? And that's honestly what you should build on. And that trust is a lot about personal recommendations about these people. And again, getting the co-founders on board. So, since we're running out of time, I'll just say that the final point I have is, you have Dragon's Den in Germany, like Shark Tank? Yeah. And I'll have to say that is fake, because that's not how it works. No angels are give you money based on a 15-minute pitch. I'm not saying that the deals on TV are fake. I'm just saying that in the real world, it doesn't work that way. They only give you money because the TV exposure is worth it, right? So the extra risk they're taking. The normal thing is, I meet you at a conference here, I talk to you over Skype a few times, we might meet one extra time, and after 2 or 3 months, I really feel that this is the right team. And actually, I stole this from Mark Soster, the VC, who says, I don't invest in a point, I invest in a line. Again, it's coming back to early stage trust in you. So don't believe what's happening there, that you can get the money after a 15-minute pitch. It doesn't happen. There's a few of these investors, and in perfect hindsight, after 10 years, these investors who operate that way, I will claim they're losing their money. So the final thing is actually you should ask yourself, well, you need your money now. Because going to a person like me, it's very expensive, right? Because in the early days, when you don't have much, the valuation is very, very low. So a person like me will say, yes, I would like to invest 100,000 euro, but I want 15% in return. You should ask yourself, well, these 15% are better off with 2 co-founders who actually would work for free, and then you come to a point where valuation is much higher. Because if you want to go that route, you should expect to be diluted a lot. Maybe that's worth it, but you should really ask yourself, could I wait later? I never met a founder who said, in perfect hindsight, I should have taken money in earlier. But I meet a lot of founders who basically said, well, I should maybe have waited taking money and have bootstrapped something more. So that's basically my extremely quick wrap-up of how things do. And then I'll say there's nothing wrong with VCs. The VCs are great if you end up there. But the chance you are here now and have a VC case is very low. The chance that the VC are your first investor is actually non-existing. So you should focus about getting co-founders. After getting co-founders, coming to a point where you could be interesting for private investors like a business angel. When you come to that point, you go out and contact the right investors who are the ones who actually invest in something in your stage, in your industry, and maybe even in your country. So, thanks. Actually, I think I have a talk at the rooftop afterwards, where I talk a little bit more depth about the book and basically just free advice on, on how to get funding. I think it's at the rooftop, I'm not sure. Yes. It is, yeah.
It's on the rooftop.
Yeah.
Did you bring some sunblocker or?
Yeah, my wife is actually selling sunblocker, so I think she's mad that I didn't brought it, but no.
Okay, but I think there are a few umbrellas. I wanted to know, like, you'll be talking about your book upstairs at the rooftop.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about finance now a lot.
Yeah.
And you're giving away your book online free of charge.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, you can say getting money out of entrepreneurs is a bad idea, right? It's like, getting money to people who don't have money. No, I'm actually giving away the 40% of the book. Because my business is not being an author. My business is invest in startups. So I would like to invest in more startups. How do I do that? I go out and tell them something and give them some information. And if they later want to buy a physical book, that's fine. But honestly, that's not my business case. What I really do for a living is invest in startups. So
you keep your focus.
Yeah, you can say, honestly, it's also about something that I just want to make sure people are not repeating all the mistakes in the book. I've done them.
Okay.
So I think it's like you can't really teach entrepreneurship, but if I can just help that some of the entrepreneurs are not doing the same silly mistakes that I've done, because I've done them. I have had this prototype and contacted VCs and become mad why they didn't want to invest, because I didn't know how VCs worked. Mm-hmm. And I contacted the wrong business angels, also had the wrong business angel on board. So basically, it's about me giving a little bit back and hope that new startups are not doing the same silly mistakes.
Yes, thank you.
I
think it's worth really to follow him upstairs to the sunny rooftop and ask questions if you have them. So, Nicolaj, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.